Today by
Dr. Hijab Batul.
it is our honor to welcome you all to the 44th Annual Conference of Pakistan Association of Pathologists and 9th Joint Conference of Societies of Pakistan.
Let's begin this session with the name of Allah, recitation of Holy Quran.
اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى أن رآه استغنى إن إلى ربك الرجعى أرأيت الذي ينهى عبدا إذا صلى أرأيت إن كان على الهدى أو أمر بالتقوى أرأيت إن كذب وتولى ألم يعلم بأن الله يرى كلا لئن لم ينته لنسفعا بالناصية ناصية كاذبة خاطئة فليدع ناديه سندع الزبانية كلا لا تطعه واسجد واقترب.
Please stand up for the national anthem. To formally begin this session and the welcome address, we would like to invite Professor Shahid Parvez on the stage. Professor Shahid Parvez is President, Pakistan Association of Pathologists, and he is a consultant professor of pathology at Aga Khan University Hospital, Karachi. He has various national and international researches. Please welcome Dr. Shahid Parvez.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear fellow colleagues, Assalamu alaikum, and a very warm welcome to 44th Annual Conference of the Pakistan Association of Pathologists and 9th Annual Conference of the Joint Societies of Pathology. It is actually quite heartwarming to see such a extensive gathering of the pathologists from all subspecialties of pathology, and I think we already have over 1,000 registrants. We are passing through difficult times. The theme of the conference, the post-COVID, we left COVID behind, then came flood and its destructions, still fallout we are facing, the political turmoil, and above all the economic turmoil and the difficulties. It has been seen in various countries in front of us, that scientific progress is greatly intimately associated with the economic progress. Usually the economic progress comes first, economic development comes first, and then comes the scientific progress. Uh, take the examples of China, Korea, Japan, even United States. And I am very pleased to mention that this time the uh, exhibition, when you will enter the exhibition hall, it will take your breath away. It has never been so extensive. Uh, this kind of exhibition you will only expect, in US CAP or European congresses, So the industry, is our sponsors, industry, scientific exhibitions, which are part, because, a technology is at the heart of our uh, discipline. So this is a proof that our nation, like always, is resilient, and our progress is continuing in spite of all difficulties. Hope that the fruits of this progress trickle to the most vulnerable uh, and deprived segments of our society, because it is only from here, the right diagnosis, from where the proper treatment of the patient begins. So thank you, and I will now request our chair organizing committee, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shahid. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Asif Loya. He is the Diplomat American Board in Anatomical and Cytopathology, as well as a Fellow of College of Physicians and Surgeons, Pakistan. He has many international and national publications. He's currently working as a medical director and consultant pathology at Shaukat Khana Memorial Trust Hospital. He's also the chairman of organizing committee of this year's PAP. Dr. Asif Loya, ladies and gentlemen.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you everyone for being here. And शाहिद साहब ने काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें ऑलरेडी कह दी हैं. आप लोगों का बहुत शुक्रिया कि यहाँ पे आए और इस प्रोग्राम को हमने टाइम पे स्टार्ट कर सके. As Dr. Shahid mentioned, that the exhibition that we have is really a grand event. I have never seen such a grand event ever in Pakistan. So we look forward to the inauguration of that. And inshallah, it's going to be a great meeting. We have excellent lectures, talks. People are joining on Zoom and from various international locations. So I look forward to a great event. And again, welcome to all of you, and hope you have a great time in this meeting. Before I finish, I must say a few names who've really played a great role in organizing this event. First of all, two ladies, Miss Amber and Miss Anam. I think they deserve a big round of applause. They've been really the backbone of this event. And then our very own Masood Saab, who's taken the arrangements to himself. And then last but not the least, our sponsors, our platinum sponsor, Hura Pharma, then our gold sponsors, GMS, Abbott. If I'm missing any names, please forgive me. Then our silver sponsors, Roche, Snibe, and there are many other. They're all in front of you here. You can see, and on the sides, they're on the posters as well. So again, welcome, and thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Umar Shuktai. He's Fellow College of American Pathologists, Director Operations at Shuktai Lab, and he's an amazing leader. Please welcome Dr. Umar Shuktai.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much to all of you for being here and being here on time. it is very important for us to recognize some of the icons of pathology, and we're going to do that this morning with Lifetime Achievement Awards. And it was very important for us that we have a good audience here to appreciate all of their efforts, their lifelong dedication to pathology. And again, as Dr. Asif Loya has said, nothing is possible without an amazing team. None of this would have been possible without the untiring efforts of Amber, Anam, Masood Saab, and countless other members of our team, Harun, who have worked night and day to make this event possible. If anything goes well, it is to their credit. If anything does not go well, it is probably my fault. Please do let me know. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, sir. Pathology is the backbone of modern medicine, and it is well said that without pathology, medicine is blind. In addition, pathologists are more suited to teach and get involved in both basic and applied research, as this unique perspective is exclusively available to them.
In Pakistan, diagnostic pathology has come a very long way, and the credit squarely goes to founding fathers of pathology. Today's event to confer Lifetime Achievement Awards is a very humble gesture towards the immense and continued untiring services of these individuals who laid a strong foundation for current and future generation of pathologists, ensuring evidence-based optimum management of patients.
Now, we will cite a brief citation of all the recipients. Keeping in view the time restraints, these shall be read in alphabetical order of the subspecialty of pathology, that is chemical pathology first, and then followed by hematology, histopathology, immunology, microbiology, and finally molecular pathology.
We'll start with Major Journal Professor Farooq Ahmed Khan, Chemical Pathology. Professor Farooq did MBBS in 1978, MCPS in 1981, PhD from University of London in 1985, FCPS in Chemical Pathology in 1991, Diploma in Endocrinology from London in 1994, FRCP Ireland in 2009, and FRC Path UK in 2010. Dr. Farooq worked as Commandant and Professor of Pathology at Armed Forces Institute of Pathology, Rawalpindi, Advisor in Pathology at Armed Forces, Dean, Faculty of Medicine, Army Medical College, NUST, Dean, Faculty of Pathology at College of Physicians and Surgeons, Pakistan from 2002 to 2012. He is founding president of Pakistan Society of Chemical Pathologists, founding principal of Rai Medical College and Niazi Medical College, Sargodha.
Professor Farooq successfully supervised 5 PhD, 29 FCPS, and 13 MPhil students in chemical pathology and endocrinology. He conducted numerous workshops on quality assurance, research methodology, medical writing, clinical endocrinology, diabetes mellitus, and data interpretation in clinical chemistry. He initiated and supervised as national coordinator in National External Quality Assurance Program in Pakistan from 1996 to 2013. He published 145 papers in national and international journals and is author of 2 books. He acted as editor of 3 journals, pioneer of many departments and sections related to chemical pathology, endocrinology, metabolic medicine, nuclear medicine, and forensic sciences. He was awarded Hilal-e-Imtiaz Military by Government of Pakistan. Currently, he is the CEO and Project Director of Niazi Medical and Dental College, Sargodha.
In recognition of his immense contribution, Executive Committee of Pakistan Association of Pathologists is very pleased to confer Lifetime Achievement Award to Major Journal Professor Farooq Ahmed Khan. I think he's not here at the moment. I would like Professor Dilawar to come on stage and accept this award on his behalf. Okay, I think we can wait for him and start with the next awardee. Yeah.
Next, we have Brigadier Retired Professor Dilshad Ahmed Khan, Chemical Pathology. Professor Dilshad Ahmed Khan is the Director Academics and Professor of Pathology in National University of Medical Sciences. He did his MBBS from Army Medical College in 1981, MCPS is 1985, FCPS in chemical pathology in 1992. He was awarded MS toxicology in 1998 from University of Illinois at Chicago in USA and PhD in 2001 from Quaid-e-Azam Medical University, Islamabad. He has vast experience in chemical pathology and has served as a professor of pathology in Army Medical College, AFIP, and NUMS for the last 25 years. As professor of pathology, he actively participated in the undergraduate and postgraduate teaching, supervised more than 11 MPhils, 10 FCPS, and 8 PhD students. He has developed MBBS, MPhil, FCPS, and PhD chemical pathology programs since 2015 as the Director Academics at NUMS Rawalpindi.
Professor Dilshad remained involved in the research throughout his career and won 18 research grants from Pakistan Health Research Council, Higher Education Commission Pakistan, and published more than 175 original papers in national and international journals. Contributed a chapter on clinical toxicology and published a book on doping control and a lab manual. He has presented numerous papers in the national and international conferences and conducted workshops on quality control in clinical chemistry, lab accreditation, research methodology, and biostatistics. He is a member of a Pakistan Academy of Medical Sciences, Pakistan Association of Pathologists, Pakistan Society of Chemical Pathologists, and American Association of Clinical Chemistry. He has been awarded Pakistan Academy of Medical Sciences Institutional Research Award in 2006, Pakistan Academy of Science Research Award in 2007, NUST Best Researcher Award in 2009, Tamga Imtiaz Military in 2015, and Best Research Awards by American Association of Clinical Chemistry in 2022.
In recognition of his immense contribution, Executive Committee of Pakistan Association of Pathologists is very pleased to confer Lifetime Achievement Award to Brigadier Retired Professor Dilshad Ahmed Khan.
So please come on stage. So we started this session with Major General Professor Farooq Ahmed Khan to receive his Lifetime Achievement Award. He's here, and I'll request him to come on the stage and receive his award. Professor Dr. Mohammad Khurshid of Hematology. Professor Khurshid graduated from Dow Medical College in 1967 and went on to the UK for further training in hematology with MRC Path in 1974 and FRC Path in 1986. He worked as a consultant hematologist in the UK for about 10 years and briefly also worked at King Abdulaziz University Hospital, Jeddah, before joining Department of Pathology, Aga Khan University in 1985 as founding chair and director of clinical laboratories.
During his tenure in this position, diagnostic services of Aga Khan University Hospital Laboratories witnessed an unprecedented growth, and its outreach services across all corners of the nation changed the way medicine is practiced in this country forever. That is, from blind clinical decisions to evidence-based practice. This became possible by attracting qualified and experienced human resource as well as robust quality control measures at par with international standards.
Later, he served in various other leadership positions at Aga Khan University, including Medical Director and Associate Dean of Clinical Affairs, Dean Medical College, and founding chair of Department of Oncology. He served as Dean, CPSP Faculty of Hematology, President Pakistan Society of Hematology, among many other leadership roles. He was also conferred Pride of Performance by President of Pakistan in 2002. He mentored innumerable number of students and trainees at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels and is a highly passionate teacher. In 2021, he was given Distinguished University Professor Award at Aachen University Convocation. So you are requested to please proceed towards the stage.
Also, Professor Khurshid has remained a patron of Pakistan Association of Pathologists for decades, and this has been very close to his heart. In recognition of his immense contribution, Executive Committee of Pakistan Association of Pathology is very pleased to confirm Lifetime Achievement Award to Brigadier Dr. Mohammad Khurshid. I think.
Professor Dr. Khalid Zafar Hashmi of Hematology. Professor Hashmi graduated from Liaquat Medical College, Jamshoro in 1968. He later proceeded to the UK in 1971 for further training in hematology and was awarded MRC Path in 1978 and FRC Path in 1990. He later worked as a consultant hematologist in the UK before returning to his country. He served as a consultant hematologist and medical director for quite some time at Liaquat National Hospital, Karachi, before moving to SIUT.
Professor Hashmi supervised and trained a large number of trainees who now hold leadership positions both within country and abroad. His clinical acumen and teaching skills are unmatched. He served and supported Pakistan Association of Pathologists zealously and also served as its secretary and treasurer. His contributions to the field of diagnostic and clinical hematology are immense, and so many young people aspire to follow his footsteps, leading to a huge popularity of the discipline of hematology as a career in Pakistan.
In recognition of his immense contribution, Executive Committee of Pakistan Association of Pathologists is very pleased to confer Lifetime Achievement Award to Professor Dr. Khalid Zafar Hashmi. Please welcome. I have been given special instructions to read this citation because this is about Professor A.H. Nagi of histopathology. Professor A.H. Nagi graduated from King Edward Medical College, Lahore in 1963, and after his house job, he proceeded to the UK where he started and completed his training in pathology and histopathology. During his stay, he worked in various teaching hospitals, including St. Mary's, Paddington, Edgware Hospital, Royal Victoria Hospital, and St. George Hospital, London.
Professor Nagi has an inquisitive mind and showed his interest in renal diseases. Besides human work, he included in his research a lot of experimental animal work that was related to kidney diseases. He published his work impactfully, and this entire work ultimately resulted into a thesis which was submitted in 1971 to Queen's University for assessment. The university, as a result, granted him a PhD degree. Later, he was awarded FRCP in nephropathology by the Royal College of Medicine, Dublin. He also got FRCP in medicine, MRC Path, FRC Path, FCPS, and diploma in forensic pathology and in clinical pathology from London University. Professor Nagi extensively published with more than 175 papers, out of which 70 were on renal aspects alone. He authored 5 books, mostly for the undergraduates and lab technology.
His services as research supervisor are huge. He had a passion for teaching the subject of pathology and training of junior teachers. In this context, he trained many members of his junior staff as teachers in pathology, innumerable MPhils and PhDs to his credit as a supervisor, with many more in the pipeline. Presently, he is devoting most of the time in writing and reading. Lastly, a very short and sweet story. One day, Professor Nagi came home from the University of Health Sciences about 3 o'clock in the evening, and to his surprise, he found a guest sitting in his sitting room, talking to Mrs. Nagy. Professor Nagy joined them over a cup of tea. After finishing the tea, the guest, Professor Shuktai, stood up and invited to come with him. Professor Shuktai held his hand, took him to his office, and requested him to sit in his chair. Since then, he is occupying a chair at the Chuktai Institute of Pathology and is a member of the faculty there.
In recognition of his immense contributions, Executive Committee of Pakistan Association of Pathologists is very pleased to confer Lifetime Achievement Award to Professor Nagy.
Thank you, sir. Lieutenant General Professor Manzoor Ahmed of Histopathology. Lieutenant General Manzoor Ahmed graduated from King Edward Medical College, Lahore in 1957. After a brief time at Khyber Medical College, Peshawar, he joined Pakistan Army in 1958. He received his initial training in pathology at Armed Forces Institute of Pathology, Pakistan in 1960. He did his residency training at the University of Maryland in USA. He passed American Board Certification Examination in Anatomic Pathology in 1968. After his return, he was appointed Head of Pathology at PNS Shifa Karachi and subsequently at AFIP. He was also Commandant of the Institute from 1989 to 1992.
He spent a major part of his professional life in the study of liver and gastrointestinal diseases. His special interests also include cancer epidemiology and lymphoma. He was a member of National Panel of Pakistan Medical Research Council on Cancer. This program was started in 1974 for Multi-Center National Cancer Registration Program. The study produced the first country-wide pattern of malignant tumors and was published as a monograph. He organized Armed Forces Cancer Registry, the first one in the country along the modern lines. A monograph based on the registry data describing the frequency of various tumors in northern Pakistan was published in 1990.
He was appointed Surgeon General and Director General Medical Services, Pakistan Armed Forces in 1992. He was the first pathologist to hold this post. Lieutenant General Manzoor Ahmed has taken a keen interest in the problems and organization of pathology and pathologists in the country. He attended all the preliminary meetings which led to the formation of Pakistan Association of Pathologists in 1974. He had the honor to deliver the first Razi lecture in 1980, and it was delivered at Quetta meeting. He was elected president of PAP in 1994.
He has been conferred Hilal-e-Imtiaz Military by Government of Pakistan for his meritorious services. He is currently head of Healthways Laboratory, a private sector chain of clinical laboratories. In recognition of his immense contribution, Executive Committee of Pakistan Association of Pathologists is very pleased to confer Lifetime Achievement Award. Lieutenant General retired Manzoor Ahmed couldn't join us today. We request General Hafizuddin, Commandant AFIP, to receive the award on his behalf.
Professor Rabia Hussain, Immunology. Professor Rabia Hussain is an endowed professor and former founding head of Department of Microbiology at the Aga Khan University and a distinguished national professor at the Higher Education Commission. She was awarded a gold medal for obtaining the first position in the Masters from Department of Microbiology, University of Karachi. She then obtained a Commonwealth Scholarship for a PhD from the University of Western Ontario, Canada. Her postdoctoral research was conducted at the Naval Medical Center from 1973 to 1975. Professor Hussain obtained her fellowship in the clinical immunology at the Johns Hopkins University and later held a faculty position at Johns Hopkins from 1977 to 1979. At Hopkins, her research focused on characterizing ragweed pollen allergen. Professor Hussain then moved to NIH in the USA in 1980 as a senior staff fellow, where her research interest focused on natural blocking mechanism to allergies. Here, she identified the fundamental role to IgG4 antibodies in blocking allergies. She received the Berzin Yellow Award in 1981 from the American Society of Nuclear Medicine USA for Best Paper on the Development of Highly Sensitive Quantitative Assay, a first for the detecting IgE antibodies to parasite allergens.
She was recruited to the Aga Khan University, Karachi in 1986 to develop a state of the art immunology laboratory. At AKU, she developed a multi pronged research program in immunology of mycobacterial diseases. She has to her credit 175 full length papers in international peer reviewed journals with Google Scholar citation of 7,243 and an H index of 49. She received the Aga Khan University Award for Excellence in Research, TWAS Prize in Basic Medical Sciences, Tamga Imtiaz and Stara Imtiaz as well from the Government of Pakistan. She is an elected Fellow of Royal Colleges of Pathologists, Pakistan Academy of Sciences, Islamic Academy of Sciences, the World Academy of Sciences, where she has also served as a council member and the Vice President of Central and South Asia from 2012 to 2018. She has also served on numerous international research steering committees like NIH and WHO and national boards, including International Basic Sciences Program of UNESCO in 2015 to 2018. She has also served on several international and national editorial boards. She has been listed in the top 20 most influential women in science in the Muslim world in January of 2014. And Asian and Australian Academies of Sciences has also included her profile among 50 top scientists in Asia in 2018.
In recognition of her immense contribution, Executive Committee of Pakistan Association of Pathologists is very pleased to confer Lifetime Achievement Award. Unfortunately, Professor Rabia couldn't join us today. Professor Sabiha Anis will receive the award on her behalf. Madam, please proceed towards the stage. She is not okay. Sorry, Dr. Najiha.
Brigadier Retired Professor Tahir Aziz Ahmed, Immunology. Professor Tahir Aziz is a graduate of Army Medical College. He then obtained MCPS and FCPS in microbiology and FRC Path in immunology. He pioneered establishment of immunology department at AFIP Rawalpindi and helped in establishing transplant immunology at SIUT Karachi. He also initiated FCPS in immunology for the first time and served extensively as the head of CPSP Faculty of Immunology. He is a founding member of Pakistan Society of Immunology and has acted as a country advisor of Royal Colleges of Pathologists, UK.
Professor Aziz is an active and productive researcher and pioneered laboratory services for transplant, immunodeficiency, and autoimmune disorders. In recognition of his services, he was awarded Sitara Imtiaz Military. Currently, he is working as professor and consultant immunology at Shifa College of Medicine, Islamabad.
In recognition of his immense contribution, Executive Committee of Pakistan Association of Pathologists is very pleased to confer Lifetime Achievement Award to Brigadier Retired Professor Tahir Aziz Ahmed.
Lieutenant General Professor Dr. Karamat Ahmed Karamat, Microbiology. Professor Karamat Ahmed Karamat graduated from Nishta Medical College, Multan in 1965 with distinctions. While doing house job, he volunteered for 1965 war and joined Pakistan Army Forces in September 1965. He did diploma in pathology in 1967 from AFIP and served in East Pakistan from 1968 to 1969 as a pathologist. He completed his diploma in bacteriology from University of London with distinctions, MRC Path from London in June 1973, and was specially trained in the electron microscopy and virology from London University. He also got training in virology and microbiology from CDC Atlanta, USA, and St. Thomas and St. Path Hospitals, London. He was awarded FRC Path London and FCPS Microbiology in 1993.
The contributions of Professor Dr. Karamat as a seasoned researcher, celebrated teacher, principal, and an administrator are immense. He's one of the pioneers of virology and bacteriology services in Pakistan. Professor Karamat has significantly contributed to the field of multi-drug resistance, tuberculosis, typhoid, cholera, infection control, antibiotic resistant, and public health laboratory services, and has published extensively. Professor Karamat was the patron in chief of Pakistan Armed Forces Medical Journal and chief editor of Pakistan Journal of Pathology. During his illustrious professional career, Professor Karamat has imprinted excellent traditions of good governance and dynamic leadership as Professor of Pathology, Commandant AFIP, Surgeon General, and Director General Medical Services.
He has been awarded Sitara Imtiaz Military and Hilal Imtiaz Military. He has also served in the private sector as professor, principal of medical and dental colleges, and remained associated with CPSP. He is an active life member of PAP and was associated with its creation in 1975 to 1976. He also played a pivotal role in revamping NIH as its executive director.
In recognition of his immense contribution, Executive Committee of Pakistan Association of Pathologists is very pleased to confer Lifetime Achievement Award to Lieutenant General retired Professor Dr. Karamat Ahmed Karamat.
Professor Dr. Romina Hassan, Microbiology. Romina Hassan is a consultant clinical microbiologist and the Abdul Aziz Hussain Ali Sharif Professor in the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine and Acting Director Center of Regenerative Medicine at Aga Khan University, Karachi. Following her undergraduate medical training at the University of London, Professor Hassan earned a PhD in immunology from London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, followed by MRC Path, FRC Path from the Royal College of Pathologists, UK.
Dr. Hassan's contribution include the establishment of quality assured clinical microbiology services at Aga Khan University. She played a key role in development of microbiology residency training program at Aga Khan University Hospital, which has greatly contributed to strengthening diagnostic microbiology in the country. Throughout her career, Professor Hassan has been a passionate educator. Her initial research was aimed at studying the immunology of leprosy. Faced with increasing antimicrobial resistance in her clinical work, her research focus expanded towards the detection and study of emerging pathogens like dengue, Congo, hemorrhagic fever, and SARS-CoV. Supported by a grant portfolio of over 11 million in terms of national and international research funding, she has studied and reported the emergence of new resistance in several pathogens including tuberculosis, salmonella, enterococci, to name a few. She has published over 220 papers in peer-reviewed journals, a number of book chapters, and contributed to several WHO policy and guideline documents.
She is recognized as a global leader in her field and has served on numerous strategic, technical advisory, and expert groups, as well as guideline development committees for both tuberculosis and antimicrobial resistance at the WHO.
In recognition of her immense contribution, Executive Committee of Pakistan Association of Pathologists is very pleased to confer Lifetime Achievement Award to Professor Dr. Romina Hassan.
Professor Dr. Rana Muzaffar, Molecular Pathology. Professor Dr. Rana Muzaffar was head of molecular diagnostics and immunology laboratories at SIUT from 1995 to 2020, a position she left to join the Sindh Institute of Medical Sciences, Karachi, where she is presently the registrar, secretary to the Board of Governors, Academic Council, and other statutory bodies. Dr. Muzaffar received her master's in microbiology from the University of Karachi and her doctorate from the Florida State University, Florida. She completed a postdoctoral fellowship at the New York University Medical Center in New York.
She joined SIUT in 1995 and established molecular diagnostic and immunology laboratories, providing state-of-art diagnostic services, research, and training facilities to the undergraduate and graduate students in basic PhD microbiology and clinical services like FCPS immunology. More than 40 undergraduate and 25 postgraduate students from various national schools and universities trained in her laboratory since 1998. Her students and trainees are pursuing successful careers nationally and internationally. Dr. Muzaffar is passionate about teaching undergraduate students and has taught BS courses in molecular biology, clinical virology, and cell biology as well.
Dr. Muzaffar has worked at national and international levels by being a laboratory partner in several studies on HIV and sexually transmitted infections in Pakistan, including the National Study of Reproductive Tract and Sexually Transmitted Infections conducted by the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in 2007, and Canada-Pakistan HIV/AIDS Second Generation Surveillance Project 2005 to 2008. She holds a postgraduate diploma in biomedical bioethics and was the chairperson of the SIUT Ethical Review Committee from 2005 to 2015. She has authored or co-authored more than 40 papers in the national and international journals.
In recognition of her immense contributions, Executive Committee of Pakistan Association of Pathologists is very pleased to confer Lifetime Achievement Award to Professor Dr. Rana Muzaffar.
Thank you to the panel. And let's give a big hand to all the Lifetime Achievement Awards winners. Thank you. So let's start with the first plenary talk, which will be given by Dr. Mohammad Shafiq Gill. Dr. Mohammad Shafiq Gill is a consultant histopathologist and head of service histopathology at Sherwood Forest Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust in the UK. After FRC Path, he has completed a fellowship in breast pathology from Nottingham University Hospitals NHS Trust. He is a senior examiner for FRC Path and he's a faculty on Nottingham. And today he will be talking on development of future pathologists. Do we have the right training and assessment system in place or not?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and good morning. It's a privilege and honor to come to Pakistan to visit Lahore. My love affair with Lahore started at the very young age of 17. That was the day I started my medical studies at King Edward Medical College. And it's a very humbling experience to be sort of presenting in front of my teachers and their teachers. Again, the knowledge coming out of that, the work coming out of that big population. There is a huge potential to explore the research side. I'm just working with one of the universities here in terms of creating their biobank, because they've just realized they are set on huge patient material, which can be, that will be a very attractive option for the industry in terms of developing the new genomics, new treatment solutions. And this is how operating those trials from within Pakistan could be much cheaper when we compare the cost of living for the rest of the world. And that applies to all diagnostics, whether it's pathology, imaging, or other sort of back office functions. But what is needed to sort of capture that market share is obviously vision and commitment, the key stakeholder engagement. And I'm really pleased to see a lot of big centers already working together in Pakistan. And again, I think this, as Dr. Shah was mentioning, this participation of 1,000 plus today is really a good sign that the organizations and individuals are coming together to sort of then to look into that future. And also, it's not only public sector, but I think it has to be then public-private sector partnership, which can then create that sort of vision. The only challenge which I mentioned earlier will be creating that regulatory and assurance framework, which again these days is not like an impossible task, and it's anyhow, it's a mandatory requirement as the pathology grows and to be a reliable sort of assurance-based system. The country would have to anyhow develop that one. So I think whilst there are challenges, whilst there are major changes happening, again, I said COVID has been a blessing. There are huge opportunities, but the challenge is how we capture those opportunities, how we work together. And Pakistan, I believe, has a huge potential in sort of being part of that global pathology delivery model, whatever form and shape it evolves with time. I think I'll end here, and I would like to give acknowledgments and thanks to my mentors, my teachers over the years, who've always been kind and helpful for any help and advice whenever I need it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Mix and challenges, especially in pathology. Anemia is from the ancient Greek word anemia, meaning lack of blood. The first use of the term anemia in the English literature appeared in 1807 with the publication of a paper titled Concise Observation on Anemia by the author Professor Healy from the School of Medicine at Paris. Anemia is a condition in which the number of red blood cells or their oxygen carrying capacity is insufficient to meet the physiological needs, which vary by age, sex, altitude, smoking, and pregnancy status. Slide shows the WHO criteria for anemia for men, women, and children. Anemia is a serious global public health problem. 1/3 of the world population is anemic. 40% of the children and a large number of ladies in their reproductive life are anemic. And these figures are much higher in the developing countries. This is one of the major studies carried out on the subject from 1990 to 2019 and published in the Journal of Hematology and Oncology. This is another major study published in Lancet from 2000 to 2019. Anemia prevalence has decreased from 1990 to 2019 worldwide, but its burden remains high due to increasing population number, increased aging of global population, and lack of commitment and resources, especially in developing countries. Africa and Asia are the most heavily affected regions, with Africa having the highest prevalence of anemia and Asia being having the greatest absolute number. This slide shows the global AIDS standardized point prevalence of anemia per 100,000 population in 2019. If you could see the global regions in different colors, the larger affected regions are those in dark brown and light brown. And we unfortunately fall into the same area. And our general average is about 45,000 to 50,000 people are affected per 100,000 of our population, which is huge. So this slide shows the total prevalent cases and the point prevalence of anemia per 100,000 population by age and sex. If you see, the maximum number of cases are seen in the first 10 years of life. In this slide, the blue lines represents the male and the red line represents the female. After the age of 14 in males, there is a steady in hemoglobin levels in the younger age, but it then progressively increases as the age advances. And in the ladies, the hemoglobin is steady at the age of 14, but it increases in the reproductive years of life, and then it falls in the later years below the male. But in all ages, if you could see, the female have high prevalence, except in the first 10 years of life. So this is another important slide which shows the age standardized year lived with disability rates of anemia for the 21 global regions by socio-demographic index. And if you could see, there is a negative and inverse relationship between the socio-demographic index and development of the country and the prevalence of anemia. And we, part of the South Asia and the African countries, they show the highest prevalence of anemia, and the developed countries having high socio-demographic index, a very low prevalence of anemia. Mostly the burden of anemia in the developing countries is very high. 40% of their preschool children are anemic, and mostly if you see the stats, the African 68%, Southeast Asia 66%, Eastern Mediterranean 46%, and same is for the ladies in their reproductive years of life. More than 50% are anemic, and again the burden is mostly in the African and the Asian countries. So I could say the most vulnerable age groups are the children below the age of 5 and women in their reproductive years of life. This slide shows the number of children aged less than 5 years with anemia by severity and world regions in 2000 to 2019. So there are two different bars, one in green and one in yellow. The green ones are the areas which shows some improvement over from 2000 to 2019. And globally, it has also decreased. And if you see the South Asia, it has also decreased. But the number in South Asian countries are still tremendous. And in the yellow are mostly the developed countries, the European countries, which have shown a decline over the years. Again, if we see the map of the world, the darker regions are those where the number of severe anemia is more in children less than 5 years. So we fall again into this area. Now, another side shows the number of all women in their reproductive years of life, showing anemia from 2000 to 2019. Here, the yellow region shows a decline over the years, and South Asia also falls over here, and globally it's also declined, and many of the developed countries, they have also shown less trend. So in most of the Asian countries and globally, this trend has increased, which is shown into yellow, and Pakistan also falls into South Asian countries. Same, the world map shows by in color, they show the severe cases of anemia in the female are shown in the dark brown regions, and we again fall into the same region. This slide, quite busy, shows the global and regional prevalence by cause. The most prevalent color in this slide is the orange, and this shows the iron deficiency anemia, which is the most prevalent anemia throughout the world, but more common again in the African and South Asian countries. Second commonest cause of the anemia is the hemoglobinopathies, which is worldwide, but more so in the Middle East, African, and the Asian countries. Chronic kidney disease is one of the cause which is more prevalent in the developed countries because of increased longevity of their life. And malaria plays havoc in the developing countries, mostly in the African countries, where it is endemic. Nutrition, infectious disease, and genetic hemoglobin disorders. These are the main causes of anemia in low and middle income countries. And in these countries, the infection and nutrition, they combine together to form the most severe cases of anemia. These are the socio-epidemiological and politico-developmental causes of anemia. It has many underlying, intermediate, and immediate determinants. In the underlying determinants, the health policies are very important. Are we providing any coverage to this? The economic circumstances, and the agriculture output, the food itself, the livestock, the crop yield. And the intermediate determinants are sanitation, hygiene, healthcare, access to care, food availability, food security, food fortification, access to fortified food. And the immediate determinants are the malaria endemicity, recurrent inflammation, blood loss, hookworm, genetics, and the nutritional iron intake, iron content of the food, consumption, and presence of any inhibitors. So these are the all main ingredients which make up a nation healthy, or what we have to look forward in future. So anemia affects all stages of life, starting from preconception to prenatal. If the mother is anemic, there is low birth weight of the child, prematurity, risk of prenatal infection, risk of preeclampsia, bleeding, and in the infancy, if the child is anemic, there is delay in the growth rate, mental and psychological development is impaired. In the adolescence, there is decreased physical work capacity and decreased cognitive function. And same is that if you grow more, your efficiency is decreasing. Now, why there is a need to tackle anemia? Countries with an anemia prevalence rate of more than 40% demonstrate a severe public health burden for healthcare facilities and economic development of the country. Iron deficiency alone causes 1 million deaths a year. 3/4 of it occurs in the Africa and Southeast Asia. Worldwide, $50 billion in GDP is lost annually in low estimates of economic losses from iron deficiency alone. And in developing countries, they loses around 0.2 per capita or 0.05 of its GDP. Before embarking on any program of prevention of anemia, we must make a situation analysis to determine the public health significance and prevalence of anemia, identify priority target groups, areas of greatest anemia prevalence and its causes, and to determine what people know about the anemia, what is their knowledge, and their experience with anemia prevention and control programs. Out of many preventive strategies, the community support is the most important strategy. It has 4 main pillars: information, education, communication, behavior change and communication, social marketing, and community mobilization. These strategies are used to increase correct knowledge, forge positive attitudes, and improve desired practices that leads to better anemia control. So this is just a framework of action and interventions to the targeted population if we want to reduce anemia. For the general population, balanced diet promotion, food fortification. For the mothers, improved maternal health care services, nutritional agitation, providing iron and folic acid tables. And for the infants, again, supplementation, fortification, and helmet prevention. I'll give you few successful examples of the countries who have drastically reduced their prevalence over the years by adopting any one of these strategies. If we see Peru, 2016, 65% of the children are anemic. 2019, only 12% are anemic. And they have followed the primary healthcare approach. In Guatemala, all the 3 categories, the children and the women in their reproductive life, have shown gross decrease in their prevalence. And they have mainly used the strategy of food and nutrition fortification. In Philippines, there is increased decrease in all the 3 categories in children and women, and they have used strong political and presidential support, poverty alleviation, fortifying rice to control iron deficiency, and implementing homestead food production. Among the African countries, in Rwanda, they have some success in the children and very little success in the women, but they have been using National Food and Nutritional Strategic Program, promotion of optimal complementary feeding practices, vitamin fortification, and mass staple food fortification. Now coming to Pakistan, the prevalence of anemia has been consistently high since 2001, from which it has been reported. It stood at 50.9%, then rose to 61.9 in 2011, and declined to 53.7 in 2018. So we are far ahead of the threshold of 40%, which states that it is an emergency for the public health. More than half of the Pakistani children are anemic, and 5.7% are severely anemic. The prevalence of anemia is slightly higher amongst boys than the girls, and children in rural areas are more likely to be anemic than the urban ones. In the adolescent girls in Pakistan, 56.6% of the girls are anemic, and adolescent girls in rural are more anemic than the urbans. In the women, in the reproductive years of life, there is some decrease in percentage in the prevalence over the years, but still it stands at 44%. Pakistan Demographic Health Survey 2021 shows that only 29% of the women took iron tablets for 90 days during their most recent pregnancy. This percentage is still higher than the previous search, but there is a lot of work to be required. Pakistan Ministry of Planning and Development has initiated this 7-year program along with World Food Program for Pakistan Multi-Sectorial Nutritional Strategy. The aim of this program is to significantly and substantially reduce the burden of malnutrition in the country, which focus on most marginalized and disadvantaged segment of the population. So the number of strategies and activities related to this program has been listed, and we are still looking forward to have an initial report on this program, and let's hope that this helps us. Anemia is is linked with nutrition and the SDGs. The ambition to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture is captured in SDG 2. However, at least 12 of the 17 goals contain indicators that are highly relevant to nutrition and are important components of anemia control. One of the WHO global targets for 2025 is to reduce anemia in women of reproductive life to about 50%. But this target appears to be quite ambitious, and they have reviewed it to 2030. Now, what are the reasons for non-implementation of preventive measures, especially in developing countries? Number one is education, lack of awareness, low literacy, low adherence, lack of government will, low monitoring and education, financial constraints, social, religious and cultural beliefs, community engagement and collaboration, women empowerment, in health, lack of healthcare facilities, uncontrolled infection, hidden symptoms and comorbidity of another non-communicable disease. Now, what's the way forward? Firstly, we must recognize anemia, especially in our country, as a major public health problem. And then prevention and control should be a priority, and there should be an accelerated effort for a multi-sectorial approach. I conclude by saying that addressing the challenge of anemia will necessitate a holistic response to the proximate and distal determinants of anemia, identification of local determinants of anemia, and implementation of contextually appropriate strategies will be crucial for progress in this important health issue. About 50% around population of our population is anemic. And I must say that my message is that the societies of pathology should come forward to fight against the serious public health problem in this country through collaboration with government, NGOs, and WHO programs by mass screening for diagnosis, counseling and consultancy, helping health authorities in policy making and implementation, and forming task forces for monitoring and evaluation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, I would like to request Professor A.S. Chugtai to please come on stage. Thank you so much. Our next plenary talk will be given by Major General Farooq Ahmed Khan. General Farooq initiated and supervised NICAP and has been a WHO consultant and a national figure in quality assurance and lab accreditation, author of 145 research papers and 2 books. He has been awarded Hilal-e-Imtiaz Military by Government of Pakistan. Today he'll be talking on bridging the gaps for laboratory medicine in Pakistan.
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. May I first take this opportunity for the great honor that I have been honored with by very kind invitation from the organizers, particularly the President, Pakistan Association of Pathologists, and Professor Chugtai. I am really grateful for this particular honor to me. Coming to my talk, I would be talking more in relevance to my field, which is the field of chemical pathology, but because it makes a very significant portion of laboratory medicine, I think the same will apply to the other disciplines as well. So healthcare today basically revolves around disease diagnosis, and then we have follow-up laboratory medicine support during therapy, and then we also aid in the monitoring of the therapeutic regime. However, the future is going to be focused on working on the predisposition and the screening of different diseases and identifying individuals at that stage where some preventive strategies can be implemented. And then that would be followed by targeted therapy, and the prevention might include many other things, but will definitely include lifestyle changes, nutritional aspects, as was just mentioned by General Salim for anemia, and of course, selective therapeutic measures, even for prevention strategies like the metformin, which is given to patients of I, IDG for prevention of diabetes mellitus to occur. So this is the paradigm shift which has already started, and in fact it is going to be more and more on these lines in future, and that is what will definitely contribute to prolonging the age span of the people, and also with better health as compared to what they go through now. So it would be a shifting paradigm from reactive treatment to proactive wellness. So early detection of organ dysfunction is one of the main objectives of the modern day services offered by laboratory medicine. I may not be able to cover each and every aspect, and in fact, I'll be just touching upon some of the systems which include the cardiovascular system, kidneys, lungs, and few others. And then I'll shift on to the major part of my talk. So there was a time when I became student of chemical pathology. Those days, all we used to hover around used to be the cardiac enzymes, their patterns, only 3 or 4 of them. We used to learn it, teach it, and then also practice it. But now this discipline has really gone much further. For example, for coronary artery disease, now we prefer the assessments of homocysteine and high sensitive CRP. For plaque rupture angina, we try to make use of CRP. For unstable angina, we use troponins. For infarction, now we resort to troponin, CKMB, and myoglobin. And for heart failure, now the markers available are troponin and BNP. So heart disease evolves over the years, and different markers are needed to assist in identifying risk or aid in diagnosis of the disease. And in fact, each and every of these markers has a huge science involved into it, not only in terms of measuring it, but also in terms of interpreting it and in terms of aiding the particular individualized patient. It was in 2010 or so, that we published this data where we showed the use of high sensitive cardiac troponins, MPO, and pregnancy associated polypeptide A. And there were distinct changes detected at a very early stage compared to the previously known cardiac enzymes. So this slide simply showed the area under curve for all these 3 markers. As I mentioned before, when I started my chemical pathology training, and then most of the patients who were to be screened for possibility of coronary heart disease, we used to mainly focus on lipids. It was cholesterol, it was triglycerides, it was then HDL, LDL, and then apolipoprotein, so on and so forth. However, now we know that lipidology is one of the major determinants, but there are a lot of other areas which need to be assessed for possibility of coronary CVD. Now, these include, say, for example, behavior of different individuals, what their lifestyle is, and how it is going to impact the possibility of CVD. And then these mechanisms involving the hemostatic and thrombotic elements. So coagulation became one of the major area of concern, and now we know that problems or problematic areas with coagulation can lead to coronary disease. And then, of course, the inflammatory markers, the genetic predisposition. So all these have distinct effect on you. The causation of CVD. And then close to this area was the emergence of metabolic syndrome. This syndrome, primarily originating from insulin resistance, also called as insulin resistance syndrome, involved a lot of associated metabolic conditions which would all lead to finally causation of this particular problem. So much attention was focused on this, and it has definitely increased our understanding of this whole metabolic cascade and has helped us in dealing with these conditions over a period of time. But more focus is required, particularly in Pakistan, in this particular area. Another major change occurred, say, for example, in kidney disease. When I was in my initial days of chemical pathology, we used to have focus on GFR assessments and along with it urea and creatinine assessment, and that used to be the main, say, for example, assessment at that time. But now we know that normal epithelium goes to damage state, early kidney changes occur in the epithelium, and it finally ends in cell death. And it is only after 70% of the renal damage that we start discovering the problems with urea and creatinine estimations. So much earlier stages are missed. And these have now been focused by a lot of investigations. And some of these are, say, for example, highlighted here, which include, say, for example, cystatin C, KIM1, IL-18, and NGAL. So these are the markers of choice if we want to detect the acute kidney injury at a relatively earlier stage. Similarly, procalcitonin response to severe bacterial infection is one of the recent markers which has been advocated even over CRP. And this procalcitonin, in fact, arises in various types of infections involving all sorts of body systems. And in sepsis, compared to control, there are huge excesses of this procalcitonin. And this slide shows that procalcitonin changes occur much earlier compared to the changes taking place in CRP. So this is a preferred biomarker for infection for therapeutic decisions. Then just few words about diabetes mellitus. And why do we talk so much of diabetes? It's a global pandemic, and it is particularly affecting Pakistan more so than other countries of the world, because our lifestyle changes, our education system, our health education system is definitely quite demanding. And so much is to be done in these areas to educate the masses at large. People simply don't understand, and what to talk of population at large. Even general doctors, those who are not really properly trained in specific area of diabetes mellitus, their knowledge of understanding even the numbers pertaining to diabetes mellitus is very, very demanding. And I think this is one of that area which requires our attention. We are lagging behind the international world in the understanding of numbers of diabetes mellitus. What I mean by numbers is the levels of glucoses, the levels of HbA1c, levels of other markers, what time in relation to dose, what time in relation to meal patterns that we need to measure the basic glucose levels. So these basic understandings are not even known to majority of professionals dealing with diabetes mellitus. So because it ends up in a huge effect on different functions of the body and can lead to very grave consequences. So I think so much is required to be done in this area. Then, of course, automation in a laboratory has come in. There are a few centers in Pakistan who have adopted automation in clinical chemistry as well and other areas, particularly in hematology. And this is one area which I think needs more attention. Doing automation is very good. It is requirement of the time, but I simply request that the quality control on these automated chemistry analyzers is much more difficult than what we generally assume that it is. And a small mistake can affect hundreds of results. So I would urge that more attention needs to be done in this area. And then, of course, further developments have come up in the area of nanotechnology in healthcare. We have these modern gadgets which are now available for aid in the diagnosis. Even point of care based on DNA analysis is now available in the international market. And so much requires to be done in our country. Now coming to the area of omics. We have been hearing about the genomics. It can tell what could happen to DNA. And the whole science pertaining to DNA sequencing comes in genomics. And then transcriptomics, cristomics, can tell what appears to be happening in terms of if we measure the RNAs, etc., and the changes in different diseases, if we can follow through primers. And then this follows by proteomics, which can tell what makes it happen, the proteins which occur because of the signaling pathway. And any abnormalities in these proteomics can be detected for the screening, diagnosis, or treatment of disease. And then finally, the metabolomics, what metabolites would finally result from different metabolic processes, including the proteins which are broken down. So this science has emerged as the new science in clinical chemistry, and it is aiding so much in terms of diagnosis and treatment of patients. Not only diagnosis, but I must emphasize on screening. So what is genomics? It's application of high throughput automated technologies to molecular biology. And the philosophical definition is holistic or systems approach to the study of information flow within a cell. We know that same genome can result in different proteomes at different stages of life. And this is what really gives you that the larva and the final shape of this beautiful butterfly, both are different stages of the same genome. There are many types of DNA sequencing. I'll just mention the broad names, the whole genome sequencing, whole exome sequencing, and the target sequencing. And I'll just, genome means all the DNA, including protein coding and non-coding DNA, whereas the exome includes all protein coding parts of DNA. Whole genome sequencing provide information about coding and non-coding part of genome, fetches out the important pathways for evolutionary studies and species comparison. It is generally required, but it is a very long process and involves sequencing billions of bases involving many, more than 1 million genes. However, when we talk of exome sequencing, it only involves 1.5% of the 3 billion basis codes, which are for about 20,000 genes, which are involved in exomes. So this leaves only 3 to 4 million SNPs to account for genetic susceptibility to inherited diseases. So sequencing only the exomes saves time, money, and effort, and pays more specific area. So what I mean is that for whole genome sequencing, you need to sequence more than 95% of the genome. But if you sequence only the exome sequencing, which is actually the area of interest for us to sequence, it's only about 1.5% area of the whole DNA which is to be screened. So Sanger sequencing is the one of the major techniques. Because of time, and then it is followed by next generation sequencing. It's automated system which is applicable in many areas, including clinical chemistry, hematology, and histopathology. And this is providing huge support to the diagnosis of disease and helps in therapeutic modalities assessment. Then, of course, the microarray technology, it's one of the major areas of molecular techniques nowadays. And then, of course, proteomics, hundreds of proteins can now be measured by automated techniques, and they are very useful in different stages of disease process. So I'm sorry if I take an extra 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
No, sir, you are most welcome. So you can take any extra time.
Thank you. It's basically small molecule profiling, all those metabolites which result as a part of different metabolic processes of the body, they are part of metabolomics. And as you can see, after genome, RNAs, transcriptomes, then proteomes, and then metabolomes, finally resulting in. So clinical chemistry is science of molecules. So metabolomics is the major area that we deal with. So there are many hundreds and thousands of proteins and compounds that can be measured and automatically, say for example, their data is compared against the software and one can identify those. So same sample collections, etc., etc. And there are many, many processes, metabolic processes. This is Krebs tickets. There are different type of metabolic pathways, and they have huge clinical utilization in Alzheimer's disease, etc., etc. So I'll skip few slides I had included for taking Alzheimer's disease as one of the. So just to show, come to the conclusion of my last two slides. Genomics, genetic techniques cannot be used in routine clinical practice. I mean, that is the message home. Current diagnostic armory involves specialized sample materials like CSF, and it is an invasive test and cannot be done repeatedly to follow up the patients. Metabolomics, yes, plasma sampling is easy and can be used for repeated monitoring, and the biomarkers can be easily measured. Ultimately, simple and less expensive chemical methods have to be used for. So take-home message is that metabolomics is the most sought-out area of modern-day omics. Disease like Alzheimer's, etc., will be done with clinically useful accuracy and timings. Equipment required for metabolomics are expensive, but it is now becoming available even in some laboratories of Pakistan. 10 years ago, we had inducted few equipments at A5P. I'm happy that that lab has expanded and is doing a very useful service. Similarly, same centers of excellence have developed at Aga Khan, at Shaukat Khanam Chukdari lab, etc. And in fact, in times to come, there will be so much in the field of metabolomics in Pakistan. I'm very happy with the progress so far and hope that it will further improve. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Major General Farooq Ahmed, for this informative talk. I would request Professor Mulazim Hussain Bukhari to please come on stage and present him with his shield. Thank you so much. Professor Shahid Pervez, please.
Thank you for a wonderful session. Now, I think Dr. Faisal Sultan is about to be here, and in the interim period, I think this is an opportunity to request our Lifetime Achievement awardee if they would like to say a few words of wisdom for our future generations. So maybe Dr. Khalid Zafar Ashmi, we start with you.
Thank you very much, Shahid. It just takes me back a few years. When I came back in 1980 and attended the first international meeting of the PAP in Rawalpindi, which was also the first Asia-Pacific meeting. And it was at that time that I joined Liaquat National Hospital in 1983, September. That's 40 years ago. And what I saw in the lab at that time was something which at that time just shocked me. We had a lab which was made available in a sort of veranda because the medical director said that the plans did not have a laboratory for the hospital. So that was the importance of the lab. And in that little place, all the sections of pathology were going on. And being interested in hematology, I wanted to see how that was being done. So at that time, there were two monocular microscopes placed in front of a window, and they had a mirror as the light source, and the sunlight would be caught and projected upwards into the eyepieces to do all your microscopy. And when I came, I brought with me in my handbag a trinocular lights, very advanced microscope, which I'd opened up completely and packed in my handbag. And the microscope I was given to work was that monocular sitting besides the window and allowing me to catch the sunlight to get the whole thing illuminated. So starting from there, this was 1983, September, we have come a pretty long way. We were just waiting for your arrival and I was entertaining the people for that. Thank you very much. Now we have come a very long way. I just want to say that there's a lot of big role played by the diagnostic associations in providing all the automations here. आप बोलेंगे करामत साहब wants to say something.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ladies and gentlemen, मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि वो वक़्त जब 1975 में प्रोफेसर जाफरी साहबान उस वक़्त के जिनको कराची वाले ज़्यादा जानते होंगे और जन नज़र थे, जन सलीम थे मरहूम, जन नज़र मरहूम, और मैं मेजर था उस वक़्त आर्मी में। तो एज ए जूनियर अफसर आई हैड द ओकेजन जब 1975-76 में हमने इस पाकिस्तान एसोसिएशन पैथोलॉजिस्ट का नाम रखा गया। और मुझे आज इसलिए बहुत खुशी है कि इतने साल गुजरने के बाद मैं उस वक़्त के चंद पैथोलॉजिस्ट की तादाद में काफ़ी ज़्यादा देख रहा हूँ, अल्लाह का शुक्र है। लेकिन बात याद रखिए, दादा दादा ही होता है, बाप बाप ही होता है। पाकिस्तान एसोसिएशन पैथोलॉजी जो है ये बाप और दादा हैं। ये जो माइक्रोबायोलॉजी, इम्यूनोलॉजी, हेमेटोलॉजी, पैथोलॉजी, ये वो वगैरह वगैरह, ये बच्चे हैं। ये मेरी बात याद रखिएगा। जिंदगी का कोई पता नहीं अगले साल मुलाकात हो या ना हो, लेकिन बाप बाप, दादा दादा। I am very grateful that these people, the youngsters, young men like Shahid Parvez, and then all other people, they आपके साथ तो हमारी जो सलाम दुआ है वो बड़ी हिडन है, क्योंकि हम FCPS के बच्चों को पास करते थे ताकि कुछ तो बने, ताकि क्योंकि उस वक्त लोग नहीं थे, लोग नहीं आते थे पैथोलॉजी में। ये भी बता दूं मैं आपको, कम से कम हमारे अभी फौज के अंदर पैथोलॉजी वाले हैं। एक अस्पताल में एक पैथोलॉजिस्ट होता था, CM मुल्तान में एक, CM लाहौर में एक। तो इस तरीके से तो जब मैं ईस्ट पाकिस्तान गया तो वहाँ भी एक पैथोलॉजिस्ट थे, सेकंड वाज मी। तो कहने का मकसद ये है कि ये पैथोलॉजी की मेहरबानी है कि हम लोग इकट्ठे हुए हैं यहाँ पर, और मैं जिन लोगों ने ये ऑर्गेनाइज किया है उनका बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूँ। आई एश्योर यू आई हैव लॉट ऑफ लव फॉर पैथोलॉजिस्ट। थैंक यू सर, आपकी बारी है पहुँचने की, इसलिए मैं
Thank you, sirs, for these kind words. Moving on to the Razi lecture of this year's Pakistan Association of Pathologists Conference. This will be delivered by Dr. Faisal Sultan. Dr. Faisal Sultan is a Diplomat American Board of Internal Medicine and Infectious Diseases. He is a Fellow of Royal College of Physicians, Edinburgh, UK, as well as a Fellow of College of Physicians and Surgeons, Pakistan. He has served as a Special Assistant to Prime Minister on National Health Services and also played a key role in COVID control in Pakistan. He is currently working as a Chief Executive Officer and a consultant at Shaukat Khanum Memorial Trust Hospital. I would like to request Dr. Faisal Sultan to come on stage.
अस्सलामुअलैकुम जी, बहुत शुक्रिया। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल अपॉलॉजीज़, आपको वेट कराना हरगिज़ मकसद ना था। I was told 10:45, so I was aiming that way. But anyway, मुमकिन है थोड़ा सा स्केड्यूल आगे पीछे हुआ, उस वजह से कुछ confusion हो। Anyway, I was asked to talk on my years, 2 years it was, as part of the COVID management team and being in the ministry during that time. तो मुझे इस talk के लिए I wanted to think what should I say, and I thought it is 2 years of living dangerously. पहले मेरा ख्याल था I had lived a year of living dangerously. That was back in 1969-70 when as a child I accompanied my parents to Jordan, and that was a dangerous year to live in Jordan. Black September and so on. आप में से जो लोग वाकिफ हैं. तो बाद में एक फिल्म आई, A Year of Living Dangerously. So I was always reminded of that. This became 2 years of living dangerously, and the alternative title is In the Eye of the Storm. तो थोड़ा सा storm का जिक्र करेंगे, थोड़ा सा COVID का जिक्र, the storm itself, how I got in, and some other stuff. इस स्टॉर्म में मेरे साथ उस शिप के अंदर कुछ लोग मौजूद थे, जिनमें एक साहब मेरे सामने बैठे हैं, आमिर ग्राम, प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर मेजर जनरल साहब, and Amir and I were of course lucky to have been there along with others in this whole thing. I've talked about it at other occasions, and one of the fundamental problems and challenges in dealing with this storm, or for any storm or any challenge that is nationwide or global, is the need for coherence. और जब हमारे मुल्क का structure devolved, federal structure हो, तो one of the things that really stands in the way in a situation like this is to bring everything together. By definition, by demand, by rational reasoning, itna bada mulk cannot be managed centrally. So it has to be devolved. That makes sense. But in a special situation like this, then it required that what was put away had to be put together. And that was one of the biggest issues. So we'll talk about the other challenges that came around. Now, before I made the silly mistake of wading myself into the storm, कुछ early milestones तय हो चुके थे in terms of this work. In mid-January, the first formal consultation was done by my predecessor, Dr. Zafar Mirza. फिर towards the end of January, a National Operations Center was set up at the ministry. Late January, they started screening at airports. February में एक नया अस्पताल designate कर दिया गया. फिर border crossings का ज़माना आ गया, उनको control करने का. Then the first case towards the end of February. March, the formal strategy started to take shape. कुछ gelling of ideas होनी शुरू हुई. और 24 मार्च को, आप सबको शायद याद हो, the day after the 23rd March, पहला lockdown हुआ. And this is around the time that I decided to make the mistake or the step of walking into this. One of the most crucial steps that got taken was formation of this coordinating entity. The world over, different countries did it in a slightly different way, but almost everywhere there was an entity where you could actually command and coordinate the entire effort together. And this was formed. It had a lot of functionalities, I put them up, but fundamentally it had to do with coordination, with bringing together of testing. Now we are in the Pathologists Association meeting called PAP, correctly reminded by General Saab that it's, the grandfather. Then we had other things to be bothered about, non-pharmaceutical interventions, preparing, ramping up the system, strengthening border controls, bringing experts together to make sure that the information systems flowed together, communication, one of the most crucial bits in a pandemic, and lastly, the whole vaccine saga. So governance का issue मैंने आपको बताया, but उसका particular problem in data flow था. The problem was that you need to be able to detect तो हो गया, how does it come to a central place? And this data flow of diagnostics was crucially important. And one of the lessons that was learned was that instead of building it afresh, एक बनी बनाई चीज के ऊपर, एक vehicle आधी तैयार खड़ी थी, उसके ऊपर, या पूरी तैयार खड़ी थी, उसको repurpose कर दिया गया. And that was the polio program. The polio program's data flow. But of course, more things like healthcare capacity, oxygen supply, and analytics, we'll talk about that. अच्छा, एक complicated सी diagram है, इसको हरगिज़ याद ना कीजिए, या ज़्यादा इसको समझने की भी ना कोशिश कीजिए. All I'm trying to show is that the flow of data was varied. It came from different places. It came from private labs, जो ताई साहब बैठे हैं, from public sector labs to the provinces, har kisam, small and large. And to make sure everybody was singing the same tune, this required coherence. And that was built. And it was built with a lot of effort by data experts and by everyone who put their share into the whole game. Similarly, the same kind of data track and data flow was required for testing, tracing, and the limited quarantine that we were able to do. This same data was crucially important for doing one of the most important things we did. I tell you, other than vaccines, three things. Is sari story mein agar teen kahaniyan hain, is the nuanced approach based on data. The second is how we scaled up some of our capacity, and the last is how we got vaccination done. This is the crux of this entire story. So, data and NPIs ki basis ke upar we were able to create hotspots. And that is what brought us the capability of limiting the sprinklers to where the fire was instead of hosing down the whole house. You used to all see this. I don't want to remind you. Thoda sa PTSD ho jata hai mujhe to isko dekh ke. Every morning in those days, on a personal note, I would wake up, pick up the phone. The first thing I had to do was mood mera theek aur kharab is surat mein hota tha ki numbers kahan ko ja rahe hain. And after a few months of looking at it every day, I could almost sense it. Tips of your fingers jo hai na started sensing where this was going. But one of the more unique bits in this was the ability to provide actual data to the citizen. Aapke karibi haspatal kahan hai? This was not perfect, but provided some guidance to the citizen at that time as to where to go when they were unwell. Do you remember this? All these projections, good, bad, and ugly, all the way from those that said there'll be 80,000 deaths a day to those that confused us, Imperial College and whatnot. But the fact is we had to assemble this capability ourselves. This was important because, to be perfectly honest, people like me did not think that those Imperial College studies were rational and real. But nevertheless, we had to create this capability, and we fought and argued back and forth tremendously. Amir will remember those days on what was right, what was more accurate in the past, who did well, who did badly. For a while, as one of my colleagues who worked with us, one of the Western ambassadors said, these days I feel like a travel agent. All my entire job is to make sure people move. And so there was this whole focus on border controls. The border controls are important, but at a stage in the pandemic, I feel the whole world started reacting to it way too late, and after that point, it was pointless and useless. The capacity build-up story is something that all of you should be proud of. All of you. The way our system reacted to make sure that it served a national need was just unbelievable. So whether it was lab increase, the numbers of laboratories, the actual testing, and I will specifically, generally I don't want to do this, I'll specifically call out Amir on this, that the NIH really helped a lot of the weaker labs to come up to standard. Better labs to achhi thi, but you know, the others had to be brought to standard. We'll talk a little bit on oxygen. The testing framework that we developed, all of you made sure that this actually happened. The build-up went from a few hundred tests to over nearly 100,000 tests. The oxygen story, I'll tell you, is something that should be really recognized. Iski short version ye hai that in the first wave, the amount of oxygen that we consumed, had we not increased, had the Ministry of Industries at that time and all associated partners not increased the capacity, you, us, we would have run out of oxygen in every subsequent wave. Wave 2, Wave 3, Wave 4, Wave 5. Panchon waves mein, charon subsequent waves mein, I should say, we would have run out of capacity had that ramp up not been done. And that was crucial. And that was done with the cooperation of not just the ministry, but the industry itself, which said, this is how we need to fix it. So we went from a production capability of around 500 metric tons a day to 800. So this was something that I really think is crucial to recognize and remember. Good communication and fighting of misinformation was another thing that you all helped and cooperated in. और फिर important बात ये कि जब communication coherent तो ठीक है, अगर वो credible ना हो तो अगली दफा कोई सुनता नहीं है. Nobody listens to it. And so the only reason a certain cadence and regularity and rhythm came to it was because we were not lying to our public. We were telling them the truth. जब cases ऊपर थे तो थे, नीचे थे तो थे. And I'll tell you, there were people who were experts, some real, some so-called, who actually came around and tried to even, I don't know why, but people tried to create or sow seeds of doubt. Perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of an alternative analysis of things, that I would like to give people the best thought. But at the end of the day, very often it created dissonance rather than resonance. Anyway, this happens in pandemics, nothing strange. This communication included, of course, a coherent set of guidelines to make sure we were doing the right thing. You can do all the policy making, but if you don't implement, good luck. That's where our NCOC and the military colleagues were tremendously useful in helping us coordinate, administer, check, provide feedback on all the mandates, the restrictions that were being put together. This was the epidemic curve, more PTSD, the tests of trends of positivity. We were criticized like crazy. आप enough tests नहीं कर रहे, आप positivity पे rely कर रहे. But at the end of the day, since these were such large data samples, the trends of positivity ended up proving very clearly that they measured the temperature of the epidemic extremely accurately. Of course, similarly for hospital admissions, similarly for daily census data, similarly for mortality trends. Mortality bhi bahut bahas hui. You're missing all the deaths. Well, where are they getting buried? We don't cremate people in this country. We bury. And so when you bury, that means every single burial can be counted. And so we ended up doing these counts, going to major graveyards in major cities, and syncing them and checking whether the ground truthing provided us support for our mortality data. And it amazingly and very reassuringly, this all lined up. The numbers lined up. I mentioned this already. The other thing was we were also looking at CFRs. And the CFR helped us to look at in a backward way. It was a backwards way of confirming that your numbers were accurate. Because unless our CFR was tremendously different from a global CFR, you could work backwards from that number and say, well, look, if our CFR in the 61 to 71-year-old was 7.26%, and that was very close to the global number, then that meant that your estimate of your total burden was reasonable. Perhaps not perfect, but reasonable. We bounced back fastest than almost any country in the world. And we are not saying it, the Economist's Normalcy Index showed us this. A bit about vaccination. This was really a hard task. In an environment where no one was willing to give or sell, prices were opaque, supply was limited, countries were very nationalistic in how they approached vaccines. Try going and negotiating. I told someone, don't ever be on the side of the negotiating table where you are the asker and it's a seller's market. It was the ultimate seller's market and we were the ultimate askers. And so you can imagine how hard that was. Our standing in the world, our ability to reach out, and of course, very naturally, all other countries first wanted to serve their own selves. So there were many challenges. You had to procure multiple vaccines, single dose, single cheezon se kaam nahi chal sakta tha. We are a large country, we had to make sure that all the vaccines available we could use. The challenges of public procurement. Aapko pata hai ki to procure in the public sector, even a sofa becomes an issue. And to procure billions of dollars of vaccines in an environment that was changing with opaque prices, it's a nightmare. And that nightmare was navigated for us by our ministry and then the NDMA. That helped to be tremendously useful. Of course, communication, fake news, all those things were important as well. Again, the governance framework was made correctly. It was implemented correctly, followed through with experts and with with a committee to procure. The organizational framework was again made with a design concept with a view to making sure that it could be decided upon quickly and not taking time. Of course, the strategy was prioritization of the use and how you deployed it. Supply chain forecasting. Now imagine you don't know at what rate the vaccines are going to be used, but yet you have to commit forward for the next 6 weeks or 8 weeks to procuring vaccines, and what if they go to waste? And so to time this and forecast this supply chain right was, again, a major challenge. And I have to tell you that the people in the ministry, in the NDMA, in the NCOC itself, the whole vaccine chain, the EPI, they were all just stars in their own right, every single one of them. Preparing the delivery system. Pakistan mein to ji thandi wali vaccine chal hi nahi sakti, -80 wali to. Did it come? Yes. Did you all get it? Yes. Then the vaccine information backbone. All of you, every single person in this room perhaps, has this kind of a card. And it was possible because of the tagging of the digital identity, not just to tests in the beginning, but also to vaccine. And so, this also shows sometimes old investments done in Nadra way back in the early 2000s ended up paying us 1,000-fold, maybe a million-fold over by helping us making sure that our vaccine program worked well. We had to ramp up capacity. We had to make sure that everybody got it on time. We had to make sure, we were even looking at gender distribution. Were we equitable in giving this? And starting out, it wasn't. It was 2 to 1. For every 2 men, there was a woman getting a vaccine. But gradually, this gender gap got closed. One day, the chair of the NCOC, Asad Umar, said to me, Faisal ji, दिन की 3 लाख vaccines आपको लगवानी होंगी. And I thought, हमने तो 3 नहीं लगाई कभी adults में, तो 3 लाख कैसे लगेंगी? On peak day, I always remind people, वो 3 लाख की बात हो रही थी, 23 लाख लगी थी, 2.3 million. Everybody in the room and others helped make it happen. So finally, towards the end, minimum vaccine dose, 94%, 89% of the population by the end of September, or middle of September 2022 had vaccines. We had to transition from the NCOC to the CDC, using some shadow staff from the NCOC, and eventually the residual component, and again, they continue to work and will inshallah serve in the future. एक framework बना हुआ है, उसको दोबारा build, enhance, strengthen करने की ज़रूरत है with people and resources, but that's inshallah going to happen. Now, while all this was going on, क्या कहते हैं, और भी हम ज़माने में मोहब्बत के सिवाय COVID के और भी धंधे थे. So while I was just focal person for COVID, it was great in the sense that I had only one thing to worry about. That was enough, but Baharal, one thing. But in my ministerial or SAPM role, obviously there were other things to deal with. And so we had a number of key objectives and goals that we had put together to present to the Prime Minister and say, this is what we are going to do. And I'm not going to list all this because this is a story and a talk in its own right. But this was stuff that had to do with elimination of preventable diseases, high quality care, institutional reform, pharmaceutical change, changing the DRAP, using an enhanced DRAP to ensure that we can export pharmaceuticals, reduce malnutrition, change the quality and system of the health workforce. Some of the things that we did, some of them have been undone, but on the other hand, some of the improvements take hold, they stick on, and they can be built further and moved again. Nothing ever goes to waste. And of course, so many other things many that we were able to do, many that we were not able to do, and I'm not going to talk about them all. Except I'm going to talk a little bit on the personal dimension. A lot of people and friends ask me, what was it like to go suddenly, in one overnight, and be thrown at the real deep end in that really crazy storm called COVID. And so the personal dimension, it takes a toll on your health because the ability to focus on your own self is diminished. It actually strains relationships, personal, family, everything. I had to travel every week to see my, very elderly parents at that point. And my family was here, my wife. And this also created a pressure that I was not used to prior to this. Your own personal safety, that also comes into question. I was never threatened like this. By the way, Dr. Fauci in the US travels with an armed escort in the US. So fortunately, I never even had a single guard. But it does impact, because when you're giving out vaccines, and there are people who think कि ये नहीं मिलनी चाहिए और वो नहीं मिलनी चाहिए, आपने हमारे बच्चों को mRNA के आगे कर दी, type conversations, and very aggressive and difficult conversations chale, is the best I will say at this point. The other thing that somebody like me really faced, and I find it very disconcerting, was the loss of anonymity. To me, as most of us as professionals, we may be known by our patients, by our colleagues and friends. As we get a little older, some of our patients will walk up to us in a shadi or a mehfil and come up, and meri to phir taange kaapti hain, given where I work. So they will say, ji, aapne hamare kisi ka ilaj kiya tha, and you always say, I hope we treated you well. If you work in a cancer center, you always worry. But that's the extent of our loss of anonymity. Here, you are stripped of it. And that, mercifully, वैसे उसकी भी एक half-life है, it gradually comes down. So that was the other one. And then there is refuges that you take. And the refuge for me, one day I remember I came Sunday morning, went back Sunday evening. My wife said, तुम्हारा दिमाग खराब है? Why are you doing this? नहीं आना था यार, अगले हफ्ते आ जाना. मैं यार, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for my own sanity. I want to come to my own home for a few hours, have a meal with you guys, see my parents, and sit in my own little den in my basement for a few minutes, just to think that there is reality and sanity around me. And I read a few books and series during this time. A great friend of mine, one of the smartest, perhaps the smartest physician that I've ever had the privilege to work with, my co-fellow at the Washington University in St. Louis, Pablo Tibas, he gifted me 2 of these books, Polio, An American Story, and The Great Influenza. Interestingly, during the COVID pandemic, I read through both of them. ये आई नहीं थी 10 साल से, I'd never read them, shelf पे पढ़ी थी, कभी time नहीं था. But I gradually, every night, every time I came to Lahore, on the weekend I read them. And so both turned out very important and very insightful. One was about the Great Influenza, the pandemic of 100 years ago. And each time I read a chapter, I said, oh my God, ये तब भी ऐसे ही हुआ था. And I strongly urge and recommend to you कि आप ये लें और पढ़ें, मिलती है easily, Amazon पे भी मिल जाती है. It actually provides insight that sometimes the world experiences something and then throws it away. But a few bits remain. So many of the great institutes in the US actually came out of these 2 things, influenza and then polio. And polio चूंकि हमारा ongoing, वो और भी गम है ज़माने में मोहब्बत के सिवा के अलावा एक और भी गम पोलियो था. And again, through a series of happy accidents and happy coincidences and some unexplained phenomenon that I do not know yet, I have my thoughts, but was that in my 20 months in the ministry, we had 0 cases. So I was very happy about that somewhat coincidental number. But there were insights there. And of course, Love in the Time of Cholera. So this is by Marquez. So I can't read the original Spanish, so Angrezi mein padhi thi. These and many other things also helped me. I have to tell you, this is very personal, but I have to tell you that I'd never used a gym in my life. I used to think, ye kaun karta hai? Game shame khel lo, bhag laga lo, daud laga lo, kuch khel lo. But somebody insisted that you must use some activity, otherwise you'll become unwell. And I actually started, hired a trainer, in fact, during my Islamabad days, and then eventually continued it here. So these were also some of the refuges and remedies for living in the middle of the storm, in the worst storm of the century, right in the eye of it. So I'd like to stop here. Thank you all. I have many friends, teachers, seniors who have just had the privilege of working with over the last many decades. तो आप सबकी इस बुलावे का भी शुक्रिया और आपकी kindness का. And also once again, आई डू अपोलोजाइज, आपको इनएडवर्टेंटली वेट करना पड़ा, मैं अपनी तरफ से तो टाइम पे ही आ रहा था, बट बाहर क्या। शुक्रिया जी।
Thank you so much, sir. So I would, sir, please stay. So I would like to request Professor Shukhtai and Dr. Shahid Parvez to please come on stage to hand over the shield. This concludes our inaugural ceremony. Now, everyone is requested to enjoy tea and visit exhibition stalls in the Grand Ballroom A and B. Please note that the journal body meeting will start sharp at 12:30 p.m. in Shalimar Hall A. Namaz and lunch break will take place between 1 to 2 p.m. in Palace and Kohinoor halls. Thank you.
Thank you.